Hello, Southminster. Good to see you and good to be with you again this week. I always look forward to these opportunities to talk with you and to share with you some things happening in the life of our church. I do hope you're holding up okay during this time of uncertainty. Before I get to this week's devotion, I want to invite you to Zoom coffee with me. Each week, with a lot of help from our deacons, I'm hosting a time for all of us to connect and get together and talk on Zoom. We're doing it by parish in order to keep things easier for us to manage. And when it's your turn, when your parish is up, our deacons will reach out to you with an invite. And then for those of you who are interested, you will receive a Zoom invite then from me via email. Now, when you receive that email, all you have to do is click on the link in the Zoom invite, and it should take you straight in to the meeting. You should be connected automatically. So I encourage you, I invite you to come join me for coffee on Zoom. We started this last week and we had a great time. So I'd love to see you. Now, on to the devotion. Last Sunday, we started a new sermon series called God and Human Suffering. We talked about suffering as related to our natural development or growth as human beings with free will into who God created us to be. This is suffering related to things like loneliness, our limitations, or temptation, among, I'm sure, a whole list of others you could come up with. But we know that this isn't the only kind of suffering in our world. And for this week's devotion, I would like to share with you a reflection from one of my absolute favorite Christian writers, A.W. Tozer. Tozer wrote The Pursuit of God, which I consider essential reading for Christians. I highly encourage you to check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. This particular reflection that I'm going to be sharing with you today of Tozer's is called That Questionable Suffering. And now, in Tozer's words, we delude ourselves when we try to turn our just punishments into a cross and rejoice over that for which we should rather repent. For what glory is it if, when ye be buffeted for your faults, you take it patiently? But if, when ye do well and suffer for it, you take it patiently, this is acceptable to God or with God? The cross is always in the way of righteousness. We feel the pain of the cross only when we suffer for Christ's sake by our own willing choice. I think that there is also another kind of suffering, one that does not fall into either of the categories considered above. It comes neither from the rod nor from the cross, not being imposed as a moral corrective, nor suffered as a result of our Christian life and testimony. It comes in the course of nature and arises from the many ills flesh is heir to. It visits all alike in a greater or lesser degree and would appear to have no clear spiritual significance. Its source may be fire or flood, bereavement, injuries, accidents, illness, old age, weariness, or the upset conditions of the world generally. What are we to do about this? What are we to do about this kind of suffering that comes in the course of nature and arises in many different ways? What are we to do about unjust and undeserved suffering? The kind of suffering that many deal with every day around the world and that many are dealing with right now because of COVID-19. The kind of suffering that we might think of as being related to things like the fall and sin. You know, Tozer's question is a great one, and it's one that we've all asked at one time or another. Well, this week, as we continue our series on God and human suffering, we'll be looking at this type of suffering, and we'll be looking at how God calls and empowers us to participate in God's conquest of sin and suffering. Now, in the meantime, Tozer offers us some words, another question, actually, for us to chew on this week. It goes like this. Well, some great souls have managed to turn even these neutral afflictions to good. By prayer and self-abasement, they wooed adversity to become their friend and made rough distress a teacher to instruct them in the heavenly arts. May we not emulate them? Something to think about this week. Again, it's good to see you, Southminster, and it's good to be with you. Have a blessed week. And we'll see you on Sunday.